everyone. Welcome to the channel. Recently, I read an article that asks how U.S. firms adjust their supply chains in China amid rising geopolitical risks from the U.S.-China rivalry. In this video, I would like to share it with you and help you have a better understanding of U.S.-China relationship.
The article I read was published in the Journal of International Business, and the authors were Bo Yang from the University of Hong Kong, Jin Yuan Song from George Mason University, Yifan Wei, and Jing Li from Simon Fraser University.
Their article introduces a legitimacy-efficiency balancing perspective, suggesting that firms in strategic industries are more likely to align with U.S. government de-risking strategies by reducing Chinese suppliers. However, this tendency weakens for firms that are heavily dependent on China economically. Using firm-level data from 2009 to 2022, the study finds that since 2017, U.S. firms in strategic industries have maintained 29% fewer Chinese suppliers compared to non-strategic firms, reflecting a cautious approach amid rising geopolitical tensions. The article defines strategic industries as sectors considered critical to national security and economic resilience, often those targeted by U.S. government de-risking policies. Examples typically include semiconductors and advanced electronics, telecommunications equipment, defense-related manufacturing, energy and critical minerals, and high-tech sectors such as AI and aerospace.
These industries are prioritized because disruptions in their supply chains could pose significant risks to national security and technological leadership. The authors used this classification to identify firms most likely to face legitimacy pressures to reduce reliance on Chinese suppliers. The authors suggest firms seek legitimacy with the home government by aligning with de-risking expectations, but are constrained by efficiency considerations stemming from market and supply dependence on China. To investigate these claims, the study examines two moderators. One, domestic political leaning, for example, Republican leaning versus others, to capture firm sensitivity to home government legitimacy pressures across administrations. And two, economic dependence on China through revenue or supply reliance, reflecting efficiency constraints that may counterbalance de-risking. The study finds, firstly, after 2017, U.S. firms in strategic industries maintained 29% fewer Chinese suppliers relative to non-strategic firms, consistent with a shift toward de-risking to preserve political legitimacy at home. Importantly, both groups continued to increase their total number of Chinese suppliers over 2009 to 2022. However, the rate of increase slowed more in strategic industries, indicating selective, not wholesale retrenchment.
Second, the strategic versus non-strategic gap was initially pronounced among Republican-leaning firms during 2017 to 2020, aligning with the first Trump administration's more confrontational stance. Under the Biden administration, 2021 to 2022, the gap extended across political leanings, reflecting an emerging bipartisan consensus on China policy and a broader diffusion of legitimacy pressures.
Finally, the de-risking gap narrows for firms more dependent on China for revenue or supplies. For these firms, the efficiency costs of limiting Chinese suppliers dampen the incentive to align with de-risking expectations, supporting the paper's legitimacy-efficiency trade-off.
So, what are the implications of these for American companies? Companies in sectors deemed critical to national security, semiconductors, defense-related manufacturing, advanced tech, are under stronger scrutiny from U.S. policymakers. These firms should anticipate regulatory and reputational risks if they maintain heavy reliance on Chinese suppliers. Also, the study shows a clear trend toward China Plus One strategies, adding alternative suppliers in other countries to reduce exposure. Firms should invest in supplier mapping and risk assessment tools to identify vulnerabilities and diversify without sacrificing efficiency.
If firms believe that geopolitical risk is structural, not temporary, firms should integrate geopolitical risk management into core strategy rather than treating it as a short-term disruption. This includes building resilience through technology, automation, and regionalization.
Finally, the effect of political leaning on supply chain decisions indicates that corporate political strategy, for example, lobbying, public positioning, can influence risk exposure. American firms should monitor bipartisan policy trends, as de-risking is now supported across party lines, reducing the predictability of policy reversals.
Thank you for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of U.S. firms' supply relationships with China. What's your take on how U.S. firms will manage their supply relationships with China going forward?